You can find the slide deck for this forum on our website at bpa.gov/QBR. That's bpa.gov/QBR. One other note, you may have noticed the first slide here today highlights the WebEx accessibility tools. We encourage you to familiarize yourself with these features and use them as needed. Another note about WebEx, BPA uses WebEx webinar mode for public-facing meetings and workshops. This mode has some restricted features. Attendees are muted upon entry, and the chat is also disabled. However, we welcome your questions and engagement. You can submit questions at any time during the presentation, and we will respond to them at the end. To submit a question, click the green circle with a white S at the bottom of your screen to launch the Slido Q&A box. And depending on your view, you may need to click the three little white dots in the bottom right corner of your screen to launch Slido. And then your questions will be sent to the BPA host. Furthermore, if you think of a question after today's presentation has ended, you're always welcome to email us directly at communication@bpa.gov. We also kindly encourage you to include your company or organization name in your WebEx display name. Having your company name on display helps our panelists and other participants know who is participating in the meeting. And you can edit your display name by right-clicking over your attendee name within the participant list. Following today's meeting, participants will be emailed an invitation to take a brief survey about this event, and your feedback helps shape content for future meetings. So thank you for taking a few minutes to complete that survey. Acting Administrator Robin Furr is under the weather today, so this morning Deputy Administrator and Chief Operating Officer Suzanne Cooper will provide an overview of BPA's second quarter operational performance, and then our Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer Tom McDonald will summarize the agency's financial performance. Suzanne will then close out the main presentation with updates on a few of our strategic initiatives, and following that I will highlight some upcoming public meetings, workshops, and processes, and then we'll wrap it up with your questions. With that, good morning, Suzanne. I'll toss it over to you.
All right. Good morning, Joel. Thank you and welcome, everybody. I'm happy to be with you today to share BPA's second quarter results. But first, I'd like to quickly address the search for BPA's next administrator. The Department of Energy is concluding the selection process, and I don't have any news to share, but I just ask for your continued patience while we eagerly await the department's announcement. This transition comes at a time when we have many important initiatives and decision-making processes underway at Bonneville. We're not changing course on any of our work. We will, however, need to adjust some timelines to accommodate the onboarding of our new administrator. Details are forthcoming, and any workshop postponements or other schedule impacts will be announced as appropriate. The Department of Energy is undergoing a leadership transition as well. We expect Kyle Hoffweit will be confirmed as the new Undersecretary of Energy soon. The Office of the Undersecretary oversees BPA and the other federal power marketing administrations. Now, since BPA plays a key role in the department's national energy agenda, they are keenly interested in the work that we're doing. They want to partner with us and see us be successful, and we will continue collaborating with the department to advance our shared objectives. With that, let's get to our key performance indicators. I'll start with our safety and reliability metrics. We are now on slide 6. So BPA's incident frequency rate is at an historic high. While that prompts ongoing action plans and strategies for us, it isn't entirely unanticipated. That's because we spent the last year establishing more rigor, visibility, and actionable oversight into our safety management system. These efforts have enhanced visibility and produced higher quality data for us. This is important because we know that accuracy in reporting actually reduces risk. Accountability is the principle we are working to embody as we seek to become the safest utility in North America. We all want to hit our goals and targets, but if we hold ourselves accountable to hit them honestly and accurately, the benefits will last far beyond this fiscal year. Our transmission reliability metrics for outage frequency and duration have moved in a positive direction. Despite the cold front and windstorm disruptions in December and various weather and equipment-related outages in March, our outage frequency metrics are currently green. The high voltage duration metric recovered from last quarter and is now on track with caution there in the yellow. Barring any major weather events, quick restoration times will help us to continue improve these metrics through the remainder of the year. The forced outage factor for federal hydropower finished Q2 at 9.3%, slightly below the Q1 result. 39 forced outages returned to service in Q2, including the notable return of John Day Unit 7, which had been out since 2019. Continued lost capacity is expected in Q3 due to ongoing outages at the Dalles, Little Goose, Grand Coulee, and Bonneville dams. We hope to see decreased outage impacts and faster return to service times as our federal partners resume hiring and can fill critical positions. Now, with that, I will now hand it over to Tom McDonald for our financial results.
Thank you, Suzanne, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today for the second quarter business review. While we have more of the water year in the rearview mirror, there is still significant uncertainty remaining at this time of year with respect to water conditions, market prices, and other variables. So our net revenue picture may change significantly, which could also impact some of our other financial KPIs, including our financial reports. At Q2, we are forecasting agency net revenues of $494 million, $15 million below target. Our forecast for IPR costs is $42 million below the target and is driven by lower expenditures in power. Agency capital expenditures are on track to be within the target range of $1.2 billion to $1.5 billion, with a Q2 end of year forecast of $1.3 billion. Our agency days cash on hand at Q2 is green. We forecast to end the year between 74 and 95 days cash. The KPI for our debt to asset ratio, or leverage, measures progress against the goal to end the year at or below the prior year's result. The Q2 forecast for the agency debt to asset ratio is 80%, which is slightly above the fiscal year 25 year-end result of 79.6%, meaning that this metric is now red. Contributing factors for this relate to both business lines. For transmission, the Q2 debt to asset ratio forecast is 75.2%, which is still above its fiscal year 25 year-end result of 74.6%. Therefore, as of Q2, transmission is not on track to meet its leverage KPI for the year. For the power business line, the Q2 debt to asset ratio forecast is 84.6%, which is now above its fiscal year 25 year-end result of 84.1%. This is driven by significant increases in Energy Northwest borrowing without offsetting additions to assets funded by that debt, because the CGS additions, including the extended power up rate, are borrowed for during fiscal year 26, but mostly not expected to be spent until fiscal year 27. As agreed to in the BP26 rate case settlement, BPA will host workshops to discuss our leverage goals and other financial plan policies ahead of the BP29 rate. We plan to kick off the process this year. We'll provide more information about this public process soon. Our borrowing authority KPI is green for Q2. This measure tracks our available U.S. Treasury borrowing authority over a rolling 20-year period. Borrowing authority is a crucial access to capital tool. We are reporting this KPI as green, but this assumes the use of additional access to capital tools. The Transmission Capital Expansion Program necessitates the use of other capital financing tools to prevent borrowing authority constraints over the long-term 20-year horizon. We are actively pursuing financing under our lease purchase program this year and into the next 5 to 10 years. Turning to slide 9, we'll look at the details specific to the power business line. An otherwise better than expected hydro year is being hampered by court-ordered operations. Starting with the blue bar on the left, Power's KPI target is $283 million. Moving to the second bar, the non-IPR expense forecast is $217 million above the KPI target. This is primarily due to the plan to serve Tier 2 loads from the FCRPS or short-term market purchases rather than forward purchases. Moving on to the third bar, the IPR expense forecast is $64 million lower than the target. This reflects current staffing levels for the federal hydro partners, a dividend distribution from the Columbia Generating Station's nuclear insurance, and a slight forecast reduction on fish and wildlife spend. Also contributing is slower hiring on the power side and a reduced forecast of conservation purchases. In the fourth bar, Power's operating revenues are forecast to come in $211 million below target. This is primarily driven by lower PF revenues and reduced trading floor sales revenue. The decrease in PF revenues resulted from operational changes, including the tiered rates methodology billing determinants model. Other drivers include lower net requirements than initially assumed in rate case. We've also seen a decline in trading floor sales. Due to court-ordered operations, net revenues are lower than they otherwise would be. These revenue reductions have been partially offset by the $40 million surcharge from fiscal year 25. Our second quarter net revenue forecast is $353 million, $70 million above the KPI target. Also, for the slice true-up, the Q2 forecast is a change to customers of about $11 million. Additional details will be discussed at the QBR technical workshop this afternoon. Again, there is still a lot of uncertainty in our forecast at this time. Due to court-ordered operations, BPA is more exposed to risks, such as a summer heat wave event. Key variables include the shape, the timing of the runoff, and potential impacts from this year's lower snowpack in parts of the region. Any reductions in generation resulting from those variables would be exacerbated by court-ordered increased bill operation. Moving on to transmission on slide 10, overall transmission is not on track to meet its net revenue KPI target. Starting with the blue bar on the left, transmission's KPI target is $226 million, which matches rate case expectations and includes the $48 million settlement reduction. Moving to the second bar, transmission's non-IPR expense forecast is $16 million above the target. This is due to an increase in net interest expense from reduced interest income, increased EIM entity scheduling coordinator settlement charges, and an increase to amortization expense. In the third bar, transmission's IPR expense forecast is $22 million above the target. This is driven in part by an increase in service contracts in support of various asset management programs. Looking at the fourth bar, transmission's operating revenues are $51 million below the target. This is mainly driven by a decrease in point-to-point long-term revenues due to customers deferring transmission service requests. Looking at the bar on the far right, in total, transmission's second quarter end-of-year net revenue forecast is $137 million, which is $89 million below the KPI target. Let's now turn to financial reserves on slide 11. Agency financial reserves for risk are forecast to be between $590 million and $755 million at the end of this fiscal year. This range reflects balance sheet volatility, but does not take into account other drivers of uncertainty like hydro volatility. From a business line perspective, we forecast power to end the year between $370 million and $466 million in reserves for risk. Transmission is forecast to end the year between $220 million and $289 million in reserves for risk, a decrease from the Q1 forecast, with the primary driver being a decrease in net revenues. The low end of this range equals transmission's $220 million reserves balance at the end of fiscal 25. with the high end showing an improved reserves position from the prior year. Translating this to days cash on hand, the agency is forecast to end the year between 74 and 95 days, transmission between 96 and 126 days, and power between 65 and 82 days. The lower threshold for both business lines to trigger a financial reserves policy surcharge is 60 days cash on hand. While reserves for risk have improved for power at Q2, it is important to highlight that significant uncertainty remains regarding the shape and timing of the runoff, and we still have 6 months remaining in the fiscal year. Both upside and downside potential can play out, but as you might imagine, we're a bit more concerned about the downside risks as we head into the summer months. Regarding these, a reminder that half of the year remains and the summer heat wave event can result in unexpected costs of $300 million or more, and uncertainty has only increased due to the court-ordered Columbia River system operation. Finally, please tune into the QBR technical workshop where the finance team will walk through key drivers in greater detail. Turning to our capital program on slide 13, we will start with the bar on the left, which represents our fiscal year 26 target midpoint of $1.283 billion. This target was established using our 2025 asset plans, which detailed the capital execution and major capital projects planned for fiscal year 26. The upper and lower dotted lines represent a range of 15% above and 10% below our target midpoint. This is what we consider the acceptable range of capital expenditures. We'll start with enterprise services, which includes the facilities, fleet, IT, and security asset category. The forecast for enterprise services increased $7.6 million, primarily due to facilities and the Vancouver Control Center project. This project is currently ahead of schedule, which brings costs forward from the fiscal year 27 time. Moving to the right, transmission is on track with no changes to their end of year forecast. This takes us to environment, fish, and wildlife, which reduced its forecast by $5.7 million, due mainly to the cancellation of the Stenson Fish Habitat project originally planned for fiscal year 26. Finally, we have Federal Hydro, which is made up of the Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Their forecast was reduced by $13 million. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is on track, while the Bureau of Reclamation has reduced its forecast due to personnel shortages and ongoing issues with contractor availability for some project types. This takes us to our final blue bar, which represents our Q2 end of year forecast of $1.272 billion for agency direct capital expenditures. This is approximately $11 million below the KPI target midpoint, but well within the acceptable target range. More details will be shared at the QBR technical workshop later today. As mentioned at the last QBR, BPA has initiated a review of our risk mechanisms and financial policies and is currently working on objectives, principles, and a project plan designed to engage this topic with external customers and stakeholders. This undertaking is designed to enhance risk mitigation strategies and ensure alignment with our strategic objectives, drawing valuable insights from our experience managing financial resilience through 3 consecutive 4 water years. We are still working out the timing for the public workshop process, adjusting our schedule to accommodate transitions within. Before we move on, I'd like to give a quick update on a bond deal we priced on April 30th. While this falls within the third quarter, the success of this debt issuance is worth noting at this point. BPA and Energy Northwest successfully issued $1.1 billion in tax-exempt bonds. The proceeds will fund new capital on the Columbia Generating Station, including work on the extended power uprate, refund and extend certain maturities as part of the Regional Cooperation Debt Phase 2 program, and earn interest rate savings on refinement. Ahead of the bond deal, all 3 major rating agencies affirmed BPA's non-federal debt credit ratings at high investment grade levels. Fitch at AA, Moody's at AA2, and S&P at AA-. While S&P held the rating steady, they did revise the outlook from stable to negative, citing the convergence of multiple credit exposures, including the effects of the February preliminary injunction, the 3-year BP rate case, and recent years' weak hydrology having led consecutive years of less than 1-time debt service coverage from declining revenue. This first ever BPA and Energy Northwest $1 billion bond offering garnered more than double the needed orders despite a challenging market. This concludes the financial report. I thank you all for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Suzanne.
All right, thank you, Tom. Let's turn to an update on some of our strategic initiatives. I'll start with day-ahead markets, where BPA continues to pursue participation in the Southwest Power Pool's Markets Plus, consistent with the day-ahead market policy framework that we released in May of 2025. Our policy direction is designed to maintain BPA's competitive position as a power provider and is consistent with our mission and statute. A critical factor in our direction is the independent governance structure of Markets Plus, which ensures no single state or entity will have a disproportionate influence over market rules or operations. This structure includes a member-driven stakeholder process that will lead to a superior market design for the benefit of all market participants. In March, BPA issued a proposed decision to join Markets Plus to solidify our policy direction and to articulate and identify our target go-live date of October of 2028. We sought feedback on the proposed decision and are working to ensure those comments are fully addressed in our final decision. We're also consulting with the Department of Energy on the rationale and benefits of our policy direction and seeking the department's concurrence before issuing our final record of decision. Substantial work is needed to achieve our proposed Markets Plus go-live date of October 2028, both within BPA and, of course, among our customers. We have already begun and continue to advance this important work, including engaging with our customers as they make their own preparations for market participation. BPA also recently launched a series of monthly workshops to discuss tariff modifications that will be necessary to enable our participation in Markets Plus. The tariff proceeding, called TC28, is expected to begin in March of 2027, after we conclude the pre-proceeding workshops. Now, moving on to power operations, we are carrying out the court-ordered spill increases that Tom mentioned, and that began in early April and continue through November 15th. The additional spill is reducing available generation, which could be especially challenging during extreme heat conditions that drive up power demand. The defendants in the case have appealed the order and requested a stay until the appeal is decided, but it's not clear yet when the court will rule on either of the motions. The court-ordered spill is already having a tangible cost impact. We are preparing for an expedited rate case, we're calling BP27, to recover these costs during the last 2 years of the current 3-year rate period. At a pre-rate case workshop on March 31st, BPA staff walked through the expected cost impact and the potential solution. The estimated impact of the court order is approximately $100 million per year, or $300 million over the 3-year rate period. About 12% of these costs will be borne by BPA Slice customers as reduced available energy and operational flexibility for them. The remaining portion, roughly $250 million, is the non-slice amount we are looking to recover through a new rate mechanism. We expect to kick off the rate proceeding soon with the release of the Federal Register notice. Now I'm going to switch gears to transmission. BPA continues to advance our grid expansion and reinforcement portfolio, a collection of 23 transmission infrastructure projects to support regional load growth, meet reliability needs, and enable commercial transmission service requests. In total, these projects would add an estimated 10 gigawatts of capacity to our grid at an estimated cost of about $6 billion. These projects are in various phases, from planning to design and construction. BPA has already completed one project, the Keeler Horizon number 2 230 kV line, which is one element of the larger Portland area upgrades project. A second Portland area upgrade, the Pearl Sherwood McLaughlin 230 kV line upgrade, is on track to be completed this spring. As other projects move forward, we now have a new contracting strategy and a pool of qualified contractors that we can deploy to more efficiently and effectively achieve our grid expansion goal. The Transmission Infrastructure and Delivery Execution Strategy, or TIDES, has a maximum value of $25 billion, making it the biggest contracting effort ever undertaken at Bonneville. The contract should be fully awarded with projects beginning to draw from the pool this spring. We're also working to integrate 16 gigawatts of generator interconnection requests that have completed the required studies and are ready to proceed. We're aiming to interconnect these new generators at a rate of 1.5 gigawatts per year and anticipate having all 16 interconnected by 2035. These requests are in addition to the 61 gigawatts of requests we're currently studying in our generator interconnection cluster study. The cluster study represents 167 unique requests with 59 points of interconnection. To enable these requests, BPA identified a need for 44 new substations and 943 miles of new or upgraded transmission line at a preliminary cost of nearly $17 billion. Customers had until April 30th to review the first phase of our study results and determine whether they wanted to proceed. A total of 7.1 gigawatts of requests withdrew from the study before the deadline. Now BPA has a deadline of June 12th to determine whether a restudy is needed to close out phase 1 or if we can proceed directly to phase 2 of the study process. Meanwhile, we are also leading an effort to accelerate transmission investments through our Grid Access Transformation Initiative. Our goal is to create a clear path to transmission service and significantly reduce the time it takes to plan for, build, and energize infrastructure. Now our existing processes just simply weren't designed to handle the volume of requests currently in our queue. We proposed significant changes with a 6-point solution framework for both near-term and longer-term actions. Near-term actions are intended to clear the bottleneck, to restore queue integrity, and to stabilize our planning. To implement these solutions, we first need to modify our open access transmission tariff through a process called TC27. BPA staff and customers entered settlement discussions for the tariff in April, and we're aiming to start the tariff proceeding this September. Longer-term reforms, which are outside the scope of TC27, are being discussed in a separate series of engagements. Now, these solutions will enable proactive, scenario-driven planning and allow us to meet customers' needs much more quickly and efficiently. We are anticipating integrating both the near-term and longer-term solutions into our transmission planning and execution by 2030. Now I have one more transmission update before we move on to some power topics. BPA is preparing to begin a limited single issue transmission rate case called BP26E. The purpose of this rate case is to address tariff modifications adopted by the California ISO that's related to its extended day-ahead market. While BPA is not entering EDAM, the tariff changes also impact the energy imbalance market, which BPA currently participates in. The modifications added new EIM charge codes impacting BPA's billing process and revenue recovery. We must revise our tariff rate schedules to be able to suballocate all EIM charges and fully recover our costs through rates. BPA staff worked with rate case parties to develop consensus around new rate schedule language, and the parties reached alignment around a settlement. More information on the BP26E rate case schedule and the effective date for the new rates will be provided soon. Okay, that was a lot. We're now going to move on to power, starting with provider of choice implementation. After years of hard work and collaboration, provider of choice concluded successfully in December when we executed contracts serving 134 utilities in the region. These contracts guarantee that public power will continue to enjoy the immense benefits of the federal system at cost through 2044. Locking in these mutually beneficial agreements was an enormous accomplishment and provides tremendous certainty for the entire region. But we have a lot of work to do before power sales can begin under the new agreements on October 1st of 2028. In March, we kicked off the contract high watermark process, which will define BPA's load obligations for the duration of the new contracts. We accepted comments on the draft calculations and also published preliminary final calculations on May the 4th. Customers have until today, the 14th, to notify us if they want to initiate the dispute resolution process. Once the high watermark process concludes, we will ask customers to make their elections for how they want to serve their above high watermark load, whether they will serve it with non-federal resources or whether they will elect to purchase it from BPA at our Tier 2 rate. Ultimately, the contract high watermark process will give us critical information for our needs assessment as part of the next resource program. Now, typically conducted every 2 years, the resource program provides analysis and insights to help us meet our power obligations over time. We are taking steps to prepare for potential resource needs. It's likely that our initial load service plan will include a mix of existing resources and market purchases, which will serve as a bridge until new resources can be brought online and procured. Now, the final topic I want to touch on is the Residential Exchange Program. This program, as defined in the Northwest Power Act, shares the economic value of low-cost federal power with residential and farm customers of participating IOUs or utilities. The program is currently implemented under a settlement agreement that was reached in 2012 but expires in 2028. For the future, BPA has been working with regional parties to prepare for the traditional implementation of the program. So implementation absent settlement. There are 3 work streams associated with this implementation. The first is the 2026 Residential Purchase and Sale Agreement, which concluded with the release of a final record of decision in March and contracts sent to participating utilities. The second is the 2026 Average System Cost Methodology consultation. This process recently completed its first round of formal comments, which we are still reviewing. Now, the third process component is developing the Section 7B2 interpretation and implementation methodology. Workshops for this process will start this summer. Now, that concludes my update. So I'm going to hand it back to Joel Scruggs. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Suzanne and Tom. Now I'm going to quickly share where you can join us in upcoming meetings, workshops, and processes, and then highlight open comment periods. Then we'll move into Q&A. As a reminder, you can find our meetings and workshops on the event calendar on bpa.gov when you navigate to the Learn and Participate tab. Here are a few highlights over the next couple of months. As mentioned, we're hosting a QBR technical workshop this afternoon from 1 to 3 p.m. We encourage you to participate in this workshop where our amazing finance team will provide additional information on some of the topics discussed today. You can find more info about the QBR technical workshop on our QBR webpage at bpa.gov/events. bpa.gov/QBR. The draft 2026 average system cost methodology and draft record of decision, which were scheduled to be issued on May 15th, and then the public workshop on the technical model used for implementing Section 7B2 scheduled for May 20th, have been postponed. We will issue an updated schedule at a later date. Currently, the next post-2028 REP workshop is scheduled for June 2nd, and there's one scheduled for June 16th and another on July 9th. BPA will host a series of monthly pre-proceeding workshops through December for TC28, the Markets Plus tariff proceeding. The purpose is to discuss proposed tariff changes to enable BPA's participation in the Southwest Power Pool's Markets Plus day-ahead market. BPA then intends to conduct a TC28 terms and conditions tariff proceeding to set and/or modify the tariff. We're hosting a pair of TC28 pre-proceeding workshops later this month on May 27th and May 28th, and two more in late June. During the morning of June 8th, we will host a workshop to develop and review provider of choice resource support service contract provisions for application of non-federal resources. And if a dispute resolution hearing is needed for the FY2026 contract high watermark calculation process, that time is reserved for June 11th from 1 to 4 p.m. in BPA's rates hearing room, and this meeting will be canceled if it's not needed. BPA will be providing a public update on the proactive planning and accelerate explanation components of its grid access transformation program. On June 15th, materials will be posted on the GAT webpage prior to the meeting. And then finally, on June 18th, we will host a discussion on day-ahead market participation related issues. This is a hybrid meeting where you can join us in person in the rates hearing room or virtually via WebEx. Prior to the workshop, materials will be posted on our day-ahead market webpage. And then while not scheduled yet, please keep your eyes peeled for the kickoff workshop for the 2026 Risk Mitigation and Financial Policies Refresh in July. This effort is a follow-up from the BP26 settlements and will provide a review of the existing 2022 financial plan. All right, moving on to comment periods. We currently have one open public comment period. We're inviting comments on the proposed Hot Springs Rattlesnake #1 transmission line rebuild in Montana. BPA is proposing to rebuild the 70-year-old 230 kV transmission line that extends 59 miles from BPA's Hot Springs substation west of Flathead Lake across the Flathead Reservation to Northwestern Energy's Rattlesnake substation, which is just north of Missoula. The project would involve replacing existing wood poles, hardware, and conductors with new 230 kV H-frame and single pole construction, including fiber optic cable for transmission network communications. The rebuild would primarily follow the existing route, aiming for similar pole heights where feasible. We're seeking comments to help determine the issues that should be addressed in the environmental review and in our compliance with Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. This comment period closes soon on May 19th. As a reminder, you can access the public comment portal by navigating to bpa.gov/comment or via the Learn and Participate tab. Comment submitters will receive an email notification, receipt of delivery, and if you have any questions about our public comment portal, please email us at communications@bpa.gov. All right, that concludes our main presentation for today, and then we'll now move into a brief Q&A session. To ask a question, you can submit it through the Q&A field in WebEx or raise your hand to be unmuted. We have received at least one question already. Ryan Neal from Wapeg asked, Does the FY 2026 end of year reserve forecast for power services shared earlier include the estimated $100 million year impact of the spill order? And we did provide a response there. The FY 2026 end of year reserves forecast includes the estimated impact of the spill order. However, the actual impact could vary significantly depending on changes in actual water condition. All right. Like we have another question from RTO Insider. Can you provide a rough timeline for issuing the Markets Plus participation decision, or is that dependent on hiring of a new administrator? I think that decision point is going to be on hold until we onboard the new administrator. So I guess our timeline for that process is being adjusted to accommodate the arrival of our new administrator. I don't think we have anything firmer than that to share at this time. Any other questions out there?
No other questions at this point.
All right, we'll give it a moment. Last call for questions. Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we will conclude this morning's presentation. However, if you think of a question later or would prefer to submit it via email, you can contact us at communication@bpa.gov. We do expect to hear more of your questions this afternoon at the QBR technical workshop, which begins at 1 p.m. The questions that we received earlier don't need to be resubmitted. We'll be posting responses to those questions on the QBR webpage in the coming weeks, along with a recording and the transcript of today's meeting. Furthermore, if you have a topic that warrants further discussion, reach out and email us at communications@bpa.gov, and we'll look at the best way for providing you that information. And as I mentioned earlier, it would greatly aid us with the production of future QBR presentations if you could take a few minutes to complete the post-event feedback survey. That will be emailed to today's attendees. All right, to wrap things up, we appreciate your time today and your consistent engagement with this and with us in this forum and others. Our next quarterly business review will be on Thursday, August 12th, when we will be presenting the agency's third quarter performance results for FY26. Until next time, stay safe and healthy.